Yo, yo, what up? What up? It's seed talk stuff to make your seeds walk, and whatnot. I'm, very excited to have this conversation with our guest tonight, Divinity. We're going to be talking about the trans experience. We're going to talk about humor. We're going to talk about why she thinks Flame Monroe and Dave Chapelle are so not funny. And I just really appreciate the relationship that we've had over Facebook and social media, just the intelligent comments, the witty, comebacks that she has, saying to, some of my friends on there. And I just really learned so much about this person. And I'm gonna welcome Divinity to the show. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for being patient. You came on the show with brother Deontay Damper, who's one of my gay brothers. Who's
Mhm.
a part of the LGBTQIA community. Really appreciated that show where y'all was going back and forth and doing a lot of
Yeah,
teaching and learning.
excited to do that again.
Yeah, yeah, we got to do that again. I hit Deontay up and see if he wanted to be on this show to speak on
Oh,
it and see, what I'm saying, what he thinks, as a black gay male stand-up comedian himself and
mhm.
how he's feeling about all this Dave Chappelle stuff. And he's got a wicked sense of humor, man. He's got a twisted sense of humor like me. So maybe next time we'll get him on, but he didn't hit me back in time for us to plan for this. But we got you, and that's all we needed, one-on-ones. So let's do this
Hey.
one-on-one. Let's jump into it. And I was talking to you offline, and I said, man, I really wanted to start off this conversation and ground it in the humanity of storytelling. And I think a lot of times, and I use the term quote unquote props. I trust that was cool, but I really feel like we bring different people in from the black community and we use them for props when we want to talk about like a controversial issue. I don't want to do that. I don't want to use you as a prop. Like, I'm just going to bring, Divinity on the show as a trans woman, as a
The
prop,
joke
and then we
trans
can
person, right?
trans person, pardon self, and do all that. No, I wanted it to be rooted in your story. And I said, just tell whatever you're comfortable with and whatnot. And you were like, yeah, for sure, So, I know you're down there in Portland, Oregon. Congratulations, you are the whitest city per capita in
Ah,
the United States. And your
we
motto is keep Portland weird.
are all
Keeping
around.
that in mind, I know that's not your roots and not your Genesis story. So why don't you go ahead and just, tell us a little bit about Divinity.
So, yeah, I'm born and raised here in Portland. But my family being from the South, it was always like being sort of a cultural fish out of water because they're still very Southern in their ways, you know, the way we carry ourselves, the way we cook, the way we just are in general. And so when we encounter the Northern people in the wild, they
In the
are
wild.
in the wild. They're they generally have that northern rudeness that southern people often talk about. Um, but there's also like this lack of accountability for their actions. So like they will gaslight you and then pretend like, oh, you're upset, you're angry, wow, like you're hostile today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a lot of my growing up, particularly with within the white educational system. I was a very intelligent child from very early. Um, and I would often like correct my teachers, and that would like engage some sort of weird dick measuring contest with a white educator where they feel like they have to put the black student in their place or find something incorrect in my correction or um and that went on for a while, and then they started asking my mother to like move me up a grade. They were just like, yeah, you know this person is just too smart. I'm not too smart, but basically I would finish my work and get bored and need more stimulation. And they were like, we can't give this child more stimulation. We've got 20 other kids. Um,
And
so
what grades was this in? What grades?
this
Was
was all
elementary
throughout
or
my
middle?
school. There wasn't an elementary grade that they didn't want to move me ahead. And I was always in like the talented and gifted classes. And there's actually only one other kid that was in those classes with me. And me and her in that time did not get along. Me and her were not friends. Like it was one site with me and Miss Thing. But the weird thing is we've grown up to be really good friends, and we've also grown up to recognize how that talented and gifted, that small group of people, how we really do differ from the rest of the kids that were in our class. Um, and that has been what a lot of my journey has been, is just recognizing my greatness, affirming my greatness, and recognizing where I put people, and being conscious of where I put people on pedestals in my mind. Because as a child, I put everybody on a pedestal for no reason, like
Mhm.
absolutely no reason. Um, Anywho, my my transition didn't come until much later, until I was 18. And I say later because I have a best friend who transitioned when she was in the ninth grade. And everybody like kind of was just like, oh, well, so and so transition. Are you going to transition too? Like, because we were the only two Black
Oh, okay.
gay students in the school. And it was just like, well, that's this person. Like, let this person be them. Like, why are you trying to associate me to that? And on top of that, I had grown up Jehovah's Witness. So um, I didn't really have an understanding of what trans was. Um, Outside of what I had seen in like Jerry Springer, Ricky Lake, uh, Maury Povich, what I call modern day freak shows. Outside of that, I
Mhm.
had not experienced anything in the trans spectrum. And so when my friend transitioned, I associated it with drag. I didn't associate it with her just being a girl now. And it was years later. I was 18, and she came over with a pageant, a movie. And in the movie, they talked about, it was a bunch of trans women in a pageant, and they were all talking about their walks through life and how they all came to recognize that they were trans and then affirm that they were trans.
Mhm.
And in the course of this movie, I heard everything that I just that resonated with my spirit, everything that resonated with who I felt like I was. And I just decided that day, it's okay. I'm trans. This is me. I'm doing it. Like, let's go get
Mhm.
me big. Let's go do it. I'm ready. And I think a lot of people didn't take it serious. Like, a lot of people thought, like, well, that's weird.
Who's a lot of people? When you say a lot of people, you talking about people in your family, your
Oh,
friends, or
family, friends, a lot of people were just like, okay, yeah, you're doing this, sure. Like as if it were a phase or.
yeah, I was about to say, yeah. I hear that
Uh,
a lot, yeah.
and I was like, no, no, this is me. I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the reason for me that being trans never really registered or clicked to me is because so much of the narrative of what makes a trans person has been filtered through white people and white experiences
I
and
agree, yeah.
older white men who were married,
Mhm.
had children, and lived this whole cis hetero life, and then decided, hey, I'm Martha today. And
Mhm.
that's where the story picks up from. You don't
Right.
hear a lot of stories from trans women who started in high school, from trans women who are Black who started after high school, just after, like I did, or and so for me, part of the reason it took me so long to really click or register or identify with this um, transition was because it was coming from mouths of people that didn't have my experience. I'm not a 40-year-old married white man with kids and resentment. That's not me.
Hmm.
So then came the stereotypes, right? Because once you are walking into another experience, you have to acknowledge the baggage that comes with that. The assumptions about you, about your health, about your sexual promiscuity, about your
Hmm.
sexual preferences, about everything under the sun. The moment people find out that you're trans, it means something different to everybody.
Hmm.
And and sussing that out is really not fun. It's just not. Yeah, that's been something that I have struggled with because I am
Hmm.
not a particularly warm person to the opinions of others. It doesn't really vex me soothly, if you will. Uh,
What does that? What does that mean? What you just now said? It doesn't. You said it
it
doesn't
doesn't
vex
vex
you. You said the warm feelings. What you said? Warm feelings don't affect you. Is that what you said?
I said no, it doesn't vex me. Like it doesn't make me happy. I'm not
Give me an
thrilled.
exact. Give me an example of, you know, of
Well,
that.
it's an old English term. Uh, uh, in specific, I'm quoting Shrek. In a scene where they are like at a high school, I think, and this character goes up to Shrek and she's like, whatever, like she just thinks like you vex her so soothly, and she just wants to know if you like go to prom with her. And Shrek was like, what? Like, girl, get out. So it just means like, this vexes me. Like it makes me happy. It makes me like
Right.
that
Right.
I'm not there
I was looking for an
with
example in your life that fits that term. An example in your life that fits that term.
compliments.
Hmm.
I'm very vain. I think
Hmm.
that's actually one of my uh, weaknesses, if you will, is my vanity. Uh, Flattery will get you everywhere with me. um, so yeah, an example of that. Hmm. I don't know. I
Well,
really don't.
we can transition because I have a different question for you. How did your family, your immediate family, respond? And if you don't mind sharing, like, what is the dynamics of your family, mother, father, stepfather? I know I had a pretty, you know what I'm saying, unique, upbringing, you know what I'm saying, with a stepfather
Yeah,
and
I
my
know.
bio and whatnot. Okay, yeah,
I
okay,
got. I
just go
got all
ahead
of
and flash it. And
that.
I forgot that I have already outed myself and my whole story almost in there, so you're probably reading it.
It was a good read. I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it thoroughly. Um, so that's the fascinating part, and that is actually the part in which I feel like my transition differs from almost, well, I won't say from a lot of the girls that I've encountered. Um,
Gotcha.
and I always acknowledge that privilege. And that when I transitioned, my mother ignored it. My mother is a lesbian and does her own thing and has never really been She was a young mom and was not
Hmm.
really into the whole mothering thing. She had things to go
Hmm.
do. And it worked because she had a village there to help her. So
Hmm.
when she couldn't be
Uh-oh. We lost we lost Divinity. We trust that Divinity to be back. And some of the questions I want to ask Divinity is to explain a lot of the terms in the lexicon, um, which pertains to like cisgender. I want her to talk about that. I also want her to talk about, the usage and preference of pronouns. And again, like get into like uh just breaking down why she doesn't think Flame Monroe, another a trans human being who was a comedian, and why the Dave Chapelle special wasn't all that funny at all to her. I don't think she watched either of them. She didn't like the fact that Dave Chappelle mentioned that he has or had a white transgender friend, a trans woman, white trans woman friend. And it was kind of like he was like, oh, like black people who say, or white people who say, some of my best friends are black and they laugh at my jokes, they laugh at my racist jokes. She felt like that's what Dave was doing. So we'll see if we can get Divinity back on the show and see if her connection kicks back in. I didn't kick her off. um, but it'd be just interesting to hear more of of Divinity's story and see all that leads into how she views the world as a black trans person, you know. So yeah, we got Divinity back.
phone overheated.
Yeah. That means you was about to say something, really fiery. You was about to get into it.
I was about to let y'all have it, and the phone just was like, you know what? Right now,
Okay. So
hold
you
on.
were talking about your privilege that you had because you were raised in a household, you said your mom is lesbian and
Let me switch you over to my iPad, which has full battery right now,
yep,
and
yep, yep,
let me do that real quick.
yep. So yeah, one of the things that Divinity was talking about was how her experience was of privilege because she had a mom, who was, supportive and whatnot. She said that other people didn't really take her seriously and whatnot in her transition. But she does recognize that she had some privilege because, from what I gathered, is that it was an experience that was more rewarding and maybe more safe than other people. And I want to hear more about that. I also want to talk about, like what does dating and relationships look for a black trans person and whatnot. Um, let's see. I think that you know, Divinity's ready to go. You
Can you hear
ready to
me?
go? Yep, yep, yep.
Can
We're
you
ready.
send me the link again?
No, you're on. You're already on. Oh, you
No, I need it from my iPad so I can
okay? You
just
want
go
me to? Okay. Did
to
you
send
want me
it.
to send it to your text message again?
Yeah,
Okay. Uh-oh.
and it should pop up over here. There you
Let's
go.
see.
Bam.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I got it. I got it. I got it. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. So back up from that camera. Okay.
Well, yeah, you're still on. I think you're still on your phone though, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. You about to switch it
I've
over?
got the ecosystem set up.
Okay.
Okay. So let's
Yep.
leave that one. Okay.
All right. So
So
talk about why you say that. You might want to move over to, I think that's your left. Yeah, there you go. Talk about why your experience, had some privilege in it. You know what I'm saying?
right.
I trust that you're talking about in comparison to other trans experiences. You know what I'm saying, that we'll share
Right,
with you.
definitely.
Mhm.
So, and I don't want to confuse anyone. My mother was not supportive. That was not what I meant
Really,
by that.
that's really
My,
interesting.
right, my mother was dismissive and
Right.
avoidant, and I think that's worse because if she'd been not approving, like if she'd just been like, "Hey, I don't like that," that would have been something. If she had been like, "Hey, I'm all about that," that would have been something.
Mhm.
Actually, cannot see where the camera is on
You're
this.
good. You're good. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're fine.
Okay.
It's
um.
working. It's working.
So, uh, but the uh lack of a response, just was a little. I don't know. Like, do you just not care? I don't know. Like, I don't know how to.
That's funny because that's one of the things we say in comedy. Yeah, as a stand-up comedian, it's like the worst thing is not someone booing you. You know what I'm saying? The worst thing is
Right.
someone just sitting there just looking at you like
I can imagine though. That's
ind
like the
in
spot. Say
indifferent.
something, engage. I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's one of those things. Any attention is almost good attention. It's like
Right.
indifference and apathy is not what you need.
Correct. Um, and she would often misgender me, and she still does. Like to this day, like I'll
Oh,
call
okay.
her, like to
You
my
think she
face.
does it on purpose? You think she does it on purpose?
Well, yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
okay. Got you.
I
Got you.
don't. I mean, do I think she's offending me on purpose? No. Do I think she's intentionally not using my pronoun right? Yes. Yeah. I don't. And the reason I feel that way is because how could you not be? It's been
Got
12
you.
years at this point, and you're when I'm not present, she's using the other pronoun, and it's like I
Got
can
you.
tell because you slip when I am here. So
Mhm.
the fact that you're slipping when I am here shows me that when I'm not here, there's no need to correct yourself.
Mhm.
But that's not where my privilege came from. That relationship with my mother was really just at that time, we just were not close, and I wasn't. I was seeking my own place in the world. Exploring who divinity is, exploring what that meant, exploring how far am I going to take this. I think at that time I was like, oh, I don't need to get boobs. I think I'll just wear inserts for like I was stupid. I was stupid AF. I had so
Yeah, it
much.
doesn't I don't think that makes you stupid. I
I
just
mean,
think
I
that
just
you're
had so
working through
much
the
to figure
working
out
through the
at that
journey.
time
Yeah, it
that
doesn't make you
my
stupid.
relationship with her just was, girl, whatever. Like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But I had a friend from high school that I knew. And at that time, my mom was putting me out. So I had to find a new place to go. And so,
Was this connected to your transition? Her
no,
putting you out?
no,
Okay, this is a whole different situation. Got
she
you,
was just
got you.
leaving. And
Mhm.
the way that she and I had it set up was I was living in her apartment and paying the rent, and she was
Mhm.
living off with her partner elsewhere. And
Mhm.
so she just had came in one day, was like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm moving to California. You need to figure out what you're gonna do.
The jig is up.
And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Dang.
I don't know what to do. So my friend from high school was like, girl, you can come here. Like, come live with me. And I lived with them for a summer. And it's one of the best summers of my entire life. And her older sister was off at college in the UK. And so I kind of fit right into like their little four sister duo, like four sister quartet. Um, And we would just go on these adventures. We would do things. It was an introduction into womanhood that a lot of trans women don't have. A lot of trans women spend their formative trans years with other trans women, learning to be feminine, learning to be womanly from trans women. And I feel like that is um, a bit of a, trying to choose my words very carefully. I think that is a bit of that's not helpful, I don't think,
Hmm.
because it also breeds a fear of cis women that is needless. My candle is out. It breeds separation. It breeds like it just breeds so much to where like when you talk to trans women, a lot of them will tell you that they don't associate with cis women, or they're afraid of cis women, or
Hmm.
they think cis women are going to get them killed in one way or another. And they just don't have very positive relationships with cis women.
Why is
And
that?
oh, so many reasons.
Hmm. Break that down for us for a little bit and educate us, because I don't think a lot of people know like the nuances and the history and the reason why.
Right. So cis women and trans women um, have often been put against one another by the men that we date, by the men that we entangle ourselves with. Um, where a lot of
She said
uh,
entangled. Jada should have never introduced that word to us.
I'm gonna use it, baby. I'm gonna keep using it. So,
Yeah,
um,
go ahead.
so the man. Okay, this is the situation. This is how it goes.
Okay.
The man will meet the girl, and she'll be like, "Hey, I'm
The
trans." He's
cis,
like, "Okay, I'm
the
with
man
you."
don't meet the cis woman.
Right. Okay. So he'll meet a cis woman,
Hmm.
and they'll do their cis hetero thing and be hunky dory. And then she'll find out that he has been engaged with, entangled with, talking to around this trans woman. And the first thing that a lot of insecure, low minded cis women will do is be like, oh, you know, that's a man, right? You know, that's a man, right? You know, she got a dick, right? And it's played again for a joke. It's played for a punchline. It's played at the expense of the man who then wants to protect and guard his ego. So, oh, I'm not with that fag shit. I'm this, I'm that. And then it becomes this whole big show. But
Hmm.
this is the thing is after the show is over and the round of applause has been given and the standing ovations are done,
Don't say
here comes the
clap.
trans woman's line. Bae, I didn't really mean that. I was just saying that because she said, because she called me and I didn't know how to feel and blah, 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 blah. And then the trans woman is like, well, why she got to be so. Nobody is blaming him. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
he's playing everybody against each other. And it goes like that all the time, every time, to the point where when black men murder trans women, it is cis women who come in and say, oh, well, she was out here trying to trick him. This is why y'all don't need to be out here trying to trick
That's
motherfuckers.
not
Y'all
always the case, though.
it's hardly ever the case.
Hmm.
Like, I
Yeah,
mean, if we get down to it, it's hardly ever the
yeah.
case. And the way that I know that, and I love my trans sisters, but a lot of the girls who end up murdered are not passable. So you're telling me that this girl who is not passable, you didn't know that this was a trans woman when you were with her. And then it comes out, oh, well, they've been messing with each other for months. The
Hmm.
mama even know this girl. Like all this stuff, but those are never the stories that come to the
Hmm.
forefront. And when those stories do come out, the same mouths that are sitting there, oh, well, you shouldn't be tricking people, are nowhere to be found.
Right. I've had a few, because I'm an educator. I'm in my 24th year, 11th year as a assistant principal. I've had a few trans students. One particular was a black trans woman. student, and um, she was being raised by two foster parents. That's neither here or there. I guess that's a little bit of an irrelevant a detail, but I remember when we were in a meeting and the first thing that came up is like, remember, if you have a boyfriend or you're being romantic with someone, the first thing is you want to be honest about your experience. And so I've learned like that is like honesty about your trans experience is something that's first and foremost, and that it's hardly ever the case that people are being tricked. They know what they're
Okay,
getting into. No
so
pun
here's the thing
intended.
about that, because that's also something that I feel is really toxic that people spread around about trans people. That is really not the case.
What's that?
So when I meet a guy,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I tell him is not that I'm trans. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I am trans is one of the last things that I will tell him. And the reason being, I don't know if I like you. I don't even
Gotcha.
know. I don't even know who you are. You just
Mm-hmm.
came over and started talking to me like I owe you an explanation. I might not even be attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I divulge is when I am ready. And it's nobody's position, because this is a thing. If he wants to kill me for being trans, it doesn't matter when I disclose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can disclose in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, I can disclose in the middle, I can disclose at the end, and I'm still dead either way.
There's a lot of validity to what you just now said. Well said. Mm-hmm.
And so when I am comfortable, when I decide, hey, I like you, I think you're a dope ass dude. This is my situation. If you're willing to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that, if you're into that, then let's go. I more often than not, when I am telling a guy up front, like I'm trans, it's because I don't want to talk to you. It's because I don't like you.
Got
And
you.
nowadays,
And you think
that's
that
not
will turn
even
him off?
that's not even a thing anymore. Now they're, oh, that's okay. I'm into that too. That's okay. I like that too. You're fine as hell. Let's do that.
That's like women lying that they're married. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's all good.
You think this wasn't out until now. It's like, okay, now we're
Right.
dealing with this. So that is that is like, just first and foremost, the assumption that a trans person just owes you this explanation to their history because we spoke, because you were interested, because they like, that is like just really presumptuous.
No,
Like,
I get that. I get that. I get
um,
that. There's stages to this thing, and I agree with that. I see that. I think a mature person who is trying to engage someone romantically or whatever, they're going to take it in stages. And with the different stages comes a different variety of questioning. And so
right.
I want to ask you a question is, do you think it's appropriate for people to ask that question? Are you trans?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So they can do that from
That's,
jump. They can just ask you from
yeah, if
jump
you
then.
think so,
Okay.
ask. That's
Okay.
always my thing. What irks me and will keep me not telling you
Mhm.
is if you're trying to ask in a way that's not going to offend me. If you're
Mhm.
trying to, like, because this is something that men will do, and this is really frustrating on a lot of levels. It's frustrating because the men who are asking these questions are not always asking because they're not into trans women. Sometimes they're into trans women and just want to make sure that you're trans, but the questions that you're asking are really irrelevant. You could just cut to the chase, baby. Just ask. It's okay. It's not. I'm not going to melt. Just ask.
Mhm.
Um, but they'll start saying like, "Oh, do you have kids? Are you on your
What?
period?
You say, "Are you what?"
Are you on your period?"
What?
Uh,
That's even more of an offensive question than "Are you trans?" I would think. And a lot of trans people actually have children.
and the one that I dislike, I think the most is "Are you female?" Which is like, I
Hmm.
it's so wrong on so many levels, like, um, that I just never answer it. Like whenever
But
that question comes up, I just I'm like, okay.
But you got to admit, there are not a lot of people who have been educated in the trans experience, let alone just different social skills. I
But
think
you
a
know,
lot
there
of time,
are.
I
The
think a lot of
problem is
people,
that
if
their education is coming at the hands of white men who have
exactly,
transitioned into
that's what,
women.
oh yeah,
And
we're
they are
saying the same
setting a
thing.
standard that they cannot adhere to. So, and what I mean
Exactly.
by that is white trans women are really problematic in the most biggest way. That's the best way I could say that. That's a technical term. Um, they're just really problematic. So what you have is you have a lot of spaces that are set up and made for trans women, particularly trans women of color. And because these white trans women are trans, they feel welcome in those spaces. And it's like, hey, who are me to say another trans person can't be in here? But when they come into those spaces, they have a lot of these well actuallys. Uh-uh. I don't do well actuallys. I don't do white people telling me, well, actually, we're not doing that. And so whenever I am in a space with them, it's only a matter of time before I'm accused of being transphobic, or I'm accused of being
Really?
racist, or I'm accused of being, yeah, very much so. All the
Hmm.
time. Never fails. You tell a white trans person that something they feel is wrong or that they've done something inappropriate, all of a sudden you are you're transphobic. How dare
Well,
you?
actually, in his latest, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that's actually the, I don't want to, well, I'm not really spoiling it for you, but I may be spoiling it from other people. That's a part of the resolution is that Dave was talking about white trans women. He said, my problem isn't, it's always been with white people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, when you're dealing with comedy, it doesn't go by the same rubric and the rules of us, like us sitting down right now and having a conversation. They're gonna
Right.
do it through jokes. But that was his thesis. I've never had a problem with my, you know, black brothers and sisters of the LGBTQIA community. I always had a problem with white people. And, you know, he throws a couple, you know, dramatic pauses in there,
So
couple
here's
facial
the
features
thing
and
with
whatnot.
that though, and with Dave and his association with white people in the LGBT community.
Yeah.
The issue with that is white people did not start the LGBT.
Right, right. That's always been my argument too.
Marsha P. Johnson threw the first brick at Stonewall. After that, you know, yada,
Say the
yada,
name again.
yada. Marsha P. Johnson
Yep.
threw the first brick at Stonewall and yada,
I
yada,
heard that's
yada.
how Pride got started.
Yeah, that's where we get pride from. Was and she was, I think, the grand marshal of the very first pride. Um,
Mhm.
but all of that came from that one moment in history. And to attribute that to white people, to attribute what the LGBT community has even evolved to white people is really dishonest. It's not. It would be like saying a white person was responsible for Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King's, you know, victories or the civil rights movement. It'd be trying to associate that. It doesn't compute.
So
So
you're trying to say white people hijacked a movement that black
that's what
people
they
were
always
already
do.
doing.
That's their
Mhm.
favorite thing to do. It's a universal law that they practice quite frequently, and black people seem deaf and dumb to it and don't seem to catch on to what is happening. But I think the most obvious moment where that's happened in recent history was the Black Lives Matter movement that happened with George Floyd's death. That
Mhm.
all those people like showed up to like the rallies and stuff, and a lot of white people came and they showed up to be dysfunctional and to riot and um to hijack the narrative and change the
Mhm.
story into something that it wasn't. That's what they do all the time. It's called the law of rhythm. When you are in a rhythm and somebody and you want, when you see somebody in a rhythm and you want to change the rhythm, the way to change the rhythm is not to like yell at them and be like, hey, I don't like your rhythm, like, No, you vibe with them, you match their rhythm, and then you can maybe change and they might change with you. But that's how
Mm.
you get in there. That's how
You blend in first.
you integrate with an energy. You energetically integrate.
Hmm.
A
So
great
you're saying
scene
that's
in a
what white
movie,
people do?
they do it all the time. All the
Got
time.
you. Got
Um,
you.
and there's a movie, The Mummy. In The Mummy, there's a scene where the brother, Joseph, I think is his name, something like that. Anyway, the brother is running from like all the mummies, like zombified people who are like immortal,
It's just a
immortal.
way, another way they demonize ancient Egypt and Kemet.
For
But
sure,
anyway,
for
that's a
sure,
whole different topic. Yeah, go
for
ahead.
sure. So he's
I see you got
running,
the Ankh earrings.
he's running, and he gets cornered by all of these people. And in a minute, he starts going along with them. Immortal. Then they
Got you.
started. That's changing. That's vibrating. That's matching energy. And then he was able to get the fuck away. Do you see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So white people do this all the time to black people. They always come in and hijack a movement. They always come in, and now all of a sudden being trans is like this big popular thing, and people are recognizing that their children are trans, and it's getting very, what is the word? It's becoming an aesthetic. And I'm not really sure how I feel about trans being an aesthetic. Um, yeah, I'm just not sure how I feel about that. I think
Yeah.
when I transitioned, there was a culture to trans.
Got you.
We had already implemented culture that was strong, that was there, that was what it was. And now so much of that culture is deemed politically incorrect. So much of that culture is deemed transphobic, if you say it.
Can you give
Like,
me an example of that? Can you give me an
for sure,
example
for sure.
of what
Uh,
culture is you're
so
speaking of that's deemed transphobic?
Yeah, so I was on Kick, I think, in a group, and this white person came in the group and was like, "Oh, I'm a trans woman. I'm this, I'm that." I said, "Okay, girl. Like, no tea. Like, it's nice to meet you." She's like, "Oh, my name is so and so, such and such, some white bitch name." And it's like, "Okay, yeah, nice to meet you, girl." And she's asking me about my transition, and I'm like, "Well, she's like, are you full time?" What do you mean? Am I full time? What kind of question is that? And she goes, oh, well, I'm only, when I'm off work, that's the only time that I dress up. When I'm not at work, I don't dress up. Or no, when I am at work, I don't dress up. But when I'm not at work, I like to dress up and be a girl. And I said, huh, how interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to remove you from the group now because this is a group for trans women. And she goes, well, oh, I didn't realize you were TERF and that you were transphobic and that you had all these rules. And no, beloved, there's a standard by which I did not create. I only adhere to myself. And you're not meeting that standard. And
Hmm.
if you're not meeting that standard, I call those people trans enthusiasts. I call those people cross-dressing enthusiasts. I call them trans women. Uh,
You said it's like cosplay.
yes, yes, and I'm here for that. That's great. Good for you. Look at you, girl. You did that. But this needing to be called a woman, I was on hormones for maybe a year and a half and still had trans women like, girl, you ain't got no titties. Like, who are you? Like, and I'm not saying that that is the right way to be. I'm not saying that,
Right.
because I found that to be hurtful too. That was damaging in its own way and caused me to run off and get plastic surgery that perhaps I didn't need. But this was the standard when I came in the game.
Hmm.
And white people came in and decided, oh, we're not gonna like it was like overnight there became all these other rules, and now trans is an umbrella term that encompasses this and that and this and that and that. And I don't do all that shit. Fuck that. It's not an umbrella
Divinity.
term. It has a definition. It has always had a definition. If you do not adhere to that definition, you are not a trans woman. And there is nothing that I can do about that. That is not something like you can. I'm not saying you can't be trans. Girl, go transition. Go do the thing. If you don't want to do the thing, that's fine. But when people don't recognize you as the gender that you want to present yourself as because you are sometimes this and sometimes that, you can't be mad about that. And that's always been like my thing. Like the idea that you don't recognize the privilege of, oh, I'm going to work as a man and making money like a man, like a white man, and then coming home and being a woman at the end of the day because I have the privilege to do so. I can do whatever I want to do. And then it is also them being in our spaces and silencing Black trans voices to be heard over them. That I have zero tolerance for. Like if you are here, I don't care where we are. You are a guest and you will be respectful. And if you cannot be respectful, you will be asked to leave. And if you cannot do so in a kindly manner, you know, I'm known to read a girl down. It's nothing, but I don't I don't ever see girls adhering to the standards that were there when I came in the game. Now
Who created those the standards? From what I hear you saying, that the culture and the standard of Black trans human beings is different than the standards and the culture of white trans people. Is that what you're saying?
Oh God, yeah. Well,
Okay.
we come from different areas. So a white trans woman lived most of her life as a white man, having privilege that none of us have any inclination of. When I think of Bruce Jenner, I am
Caitlyn
really
Jenner.
that one. I'm really baffled because when I look at how the world stopped when they decided to transition, when they decided to be what they interpret a woman to be. For a moment, I was happy because I was like, well, maybe, you know, we've come somewhere in the world where we're just embracing trans people. And I think that's great. But when I look at all that this person does, I'm really disgusted. And I'm really, I'm inclined to not believe that their transition is genuine, that it's more of an attention-seeking ploy. Maybe not. Maybe it's real. Who knows? But the thing is, I see that person as a cross-dressing enthusiast with a lot of money. With a lot of money.
You can say that for some Black trans people too, though, right? Who have privilege, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, there are some. I think there are some who have there
But
are a lot
of
who
course, just like
transition
any
back.
other dynamic of the
Yeah, there are a lot
racial
who
cast
and they'll transition back
and
into men and
yeah, and
um
economic cast, there's going to be more white people that have that privilege than Black folks.
yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
What I find more often is that a lot of indigenous trans people have a spiritual connection to their transition as well as their gender dysphoria.
That's an
And
appropriate term to use, because I've heard both ways that that's not an appropriate term to use. Gender dysphoria.
I used it.
I know. I'm just we're trying to be
I don't.
responsible and educate
No,
people.
I
So
know, and I
yeah.
that's
So
that's
I'm
what I
just trying to
mean when
say
I
if we're
say
using terms, some people might like, oh, I can use that term, but you know what I mean?
I've never heard anything about that. Like you
Okay.
saying that is literally the first time I'm ever hearing
Gotcha.
that.
Gotcha.
So, but
Because
that's what
some
I
people
mean when I say that so much of the culture is just being changed and the rules are being applied, and nobody's really asking who these rules are applying, who are applying these rules for,
exactly.
who is really offended by this language. I've never heard of anybody being offended by that language.
And
That is
I
the
think
first time I've ever heard
actually
that.
I can't remember, but I know that
Oh, I
I
believe
def
you.
I
Yeah.
definitely have heard it from a white trans person before. It's offensive. But wait, what I'm trying to say is this is when it gets very nuanced. Is because I know that gender dysphoria has been um aligned with, in some people's argument that that proves that being transgender is a mental illness. And when people create that intersection, that's when I've heard like, okay, then you can't be used. Gender dysphoria is not an appropriate term to use.
So no. Here's the thing. I've heard Candace Owens make that connection that oh, it's a
See,
wellness.
see, yeah, and that's
That I
how. Anytime
but
Kenneth Owens says something, that's how you know you shouldn't probably repeat it.
the thing with that is that I don't think that people who are trans are exempt from having mental illness, but
Right,
I
right.
don't think that being trans makes you mentally ill. And that distinction um, is really important because it keeps a lot of trans people from seeking mental help when they need it. Um,
Mm,
because they're like, oh, or they'll conflate their gender dysphoria into their mental illness, making their transition and their mental illness this big combobulated mess that it doesn't
gotcha.
really need to
Yeah, that's
be.
what I'm talking about.
um
Yeah.
right. So I never want to discourage the discussion away from mental health when it comes to trans people, because I think there is a lot
That's important. That's
that
very
needs to
important.
be
Hmm.
that there's a conversation there that does need to be had. But
Hmm.
to say that because you have gender dysphoria that means you are mentally ill, that is a
Let's let's
dangerous statement,
let's
and
go
that
over some terms real quick. This is a good segue. Can you educate us and teach us on the term? Let's start with the term you just now used, gender dysphoria. You used
Mhm.
another term, passable. You used the term cis woman, cisgender. Can we go over these terms so we can
sure thing.
fortify our lexicon?
Correct. Yeah.
Because some people think
So
that people are just making up these words, but
no, so
um,
cisgender is an acronym, and
exactly. I know it's not a
right
made up word.
identifies
Let's start
yes.
with gender dysphoria. Let's start with gender dysphoria though.
Okay.
Break
So
that down.
gender dysphoria is just a way of saying that the way that your brain identifies your gender versus the physicality of your gender, they don't match. So this part of your brain is called it's like the frontal lobe. It's called the corpus callosum, and it sends messages back and forth between the right side and the left side of your brain, and lets you know, like, this is your left hand, this is your right hand. With trans people, it tells them that you're a woman when their physicality says otherwise. So, people who experience gender dysphoria, depending on how severe the gender dysphoria is, transition to uh, make the outside match the inside. Um, to whatever degree that they feel comfortable. And I think that's really important to um, accentuate, because a lot of people focus really heavily on the end game. So are you going to get your dick cut off? So are you going to do this? Or are you going to do, like, they have so many questions about the end game that it's like, that's really none of your business. A. B. um it also, there is no wrong way, there's no right way. If somebody feels like they need a full gender reassignment surgery and goes through that process, that's fine and that's perfectly legitimate and that's their choice. If somebody feels like they don't want all of that and they just like the illusion, let them live in the illusion. That's the, both are legitimate and both are right. And in this community, there's a debate about whether you should go all the way or whether you shouldn't go all the way, or are girls who go all the way real girls versus the girls who don't go all the way, are they not real girls? And it's really toxic conversation, and it's weird that mental health thing that I was talking about kind of comes up, and it makes me wonder, like, are you bitches really happy with your surgery, or do you need to talk to somebody? Like, what's going on? So that's gender dysphoria in a nutshell.
Mhm. You use the term passable.
Correct.
What does that mean?
Passable is
And is that a appropriate term for someone to use who isn't trans?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
because that
because
seems like
some
that
bitches
that
are
that,
passable.
that that's
Some
that
bitches are
yeah, that
passable and
seems
some bitches are not. And it's just the way it is.
okay. All
It's
right,
it's just a fact of life. And if somebody is mad because they're not passable, girl,
exactly.
I don't know what to tell you.
Hmm.
Um, so passable is just what it says. It just means like I can go out into the world and pass for a woman. I can go out into the
Gotcha.
world, or vice versa. A trans man can go into the world and pass for a man, and nobody's going to question him or make him feel uncomfortable about his self.
Hmm.
Um, and it also does not mean pretty or attractive or
Gotcha.
sexy or desirable. I've met
I'm glad you
girls,
made that distinction. That's
yeah,
good.
I've met
That's good.
girls who I never would have known they were trans and they were not cute. It wasn't a like, oh shit, girl, I didn't know. Like, hey, you one of my sisters. How
What
you
is
doing? I
wrong
didn't
with
see
you?
you.
I
Let me
don't
put a
even
bell
know.
around your
If,
neck.
can you? They weren't attractive to you, Divinity. Come on
Well,
now.
yeah, that of
You can't
course.
say they weren't attractive. They
Beauty
were
is
attractive to
subjective.
somebody.
Beauty is subjective. Please forgive me.
Exactly.
That is very true. They were not, to me, my standard of attractive, and I looked them by and they spoke and I was like, oh girl, you're one of the girls. Hey, like, I don't know. I would have never known. Um so
And
yeah,
then
it doesn't mean
and then
pretty.
cisgender is
Cisgender,
something that a lot of heterosexual black men in particular, because that's who I am in circles with most, trying to teach and learn to teach. They think that's just a made up term. Now I know better, but why don't you go ahead and educate?
so cis means correctly identified sex, just at your birth. That's all it means.
And
CIS.
that's a scientific term.
Correct. It's in the medical books. It is just what it means, and I don't really get the issue, but I've heard a lot of people like that don't want to be called that don't, or who are offended by that, and it's like, if you could just say I'm not educated, it works too. It's a fewer words. Um, but they, I don't know. It's a simple
Yeah,
term.
yeah. No, I hear you. I was educated by some black trans people on that term, and ironically, I think it was on the Breakfast Club that I got. the breadcrumb, and then I started digging, and it's just all about learning new terms. Like we're learning new terms
Right. I am.
out of the science lexicon every single day, and that's just one of many. You know what I'm saying?
I
And
struggled
and
with
once you get that
non-binary
bread,
people,
and
like
once you get
with
that
understanding
breadcrumb,
what that means and
you said what?
understanding. I struggled with understanding non-binary people, like what that means, where that comes from,
Got you.
how does that work? How does it work where we live in a binary system and you choose like not. I have a friend who has been like really walking me through this because again, white people, and this is also like something that really troubles me with the community is that white people are really quick to dismiss you,
See,
particularly if you're black and they don't immediately uh clock your LGBTness. Like
see.
they will write you off really quick as like a homophobe, a transphobe, a this or that. No, no. And it's like, honey, I asked the question. You're telling me that this person who's dressed all kinds of ways is a trans woman, and they're telling me they're non-binary. I'm getting so many messages, and none of them are clear.
See,
None of
that's
them.
that's what we got to be careful about is that we don't start acting like the white people who come into any space and start being like incredibly fascist and arrogant and try to change all the rules. And I always say, if we are left alone by ourselves, black people in all our diversity would figure it out. That's
Well,
why
we would
as
have nothing to. So what I see, and what I see a lot of is black men are in a race with white men to be the next oppressor. Like it's like a reality show. Who wants to be the next oppressor? And black
that's
men,
one way to look at it. There's a lot of merit to what you just now said.
yeah,
Hmm.
and this race to a top is like in order to get there, black men are ignoring the devastation that they're leaving in their wake. And that is having detrimental consequences because when black men get murdered by the police, you know, who are you going to turn to when you are abusing all of your allies? When you have abused
Hmm.
black women, when you've murdered all the black trans women, when you've
Hmm.
when you've ostracized the gays, when you've infected black women, when all of your
When you've
allies,
hurt the children, when you've hurt the children, it all
when
begins
your
with the
allies are
children.
gone, white people will not march for you. White
Yeah,
people are
that's
not
a
going
good
to do
point.
that. And
That's a good point.
so, whether you
That's
agree
why
with a
that's
homosexual,
yeah.
whether you agree with a transsexual, whether you agree with whomever, you can't march by yourself. You need more voices. And the idea that black trans women are being murdered at the rate that we are, when we are the ones who ignite change in every medium. I remember when there was the Proposition 8 that was like, oh, gay people can't get married now, whatever.
Got you. Hmm.
I remember sitting back comfortably, like, I'm not a gay man. So whenever I want to get married, my ID says female. I can get married. This is not my fight. Um, but what I was hearing at that time from white gay men was stuff like, oh, well, we let her change her name. Why does she need her gender marker changed? We let her do this. Why does she need to do that? So when I'm hearing white people on the TV asking me, a black trans woman, to come and lend my voice to stop Prop 8, girl, do you not see how you're trying to regulate my existence? You who are oppressed, you, sir, Mr. White Man, you who are a gay man, are trying to regulate how I exist in the world as a trans woman. Not my game. I'm not here for it. Figure it out on your own. But there were a lot of black trans women who did go lend their voice, and Prop 8 was thrown out. Gay people being getting married. It's a wonderful thing. Just to bring up the George Floyd thing again, at that protest, a black trans woman was beat the fuck out. Like oh my God, thinking about it is traumatic.
Oh,
Uh,
I know what story you're talking about. I think it was somewhere on the East Coast, wasn't it?
yeah, and I feel so bad. I don't remember the baby's name.
Yeah,
She was a young
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and it was like,
No name. Spoke about her in a couple songs. One in particular. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I know what story you're referring to, or at least one of the stories you're referring to, because it happens unfortunately too often. Um,
well, this
getting back
one.
to black, getting back to
Okay,
black men real quick. It's like it's almost a philosophy: if you can't beat them, join them. And so
I
that's
see
been
that.
the case for, but that, yeah, and I think black men are leading the pack in that, because back in the day, during chattel slavery and the African Holocaust, where we were called the transatlantic slave trade, we propped our men up and put them in the forefront to battle white patriarchy with black patriarchy. And then the
Mhm.
man became the head of the household. We totally dismantled and abandoned being egalitarian, where there were no gender roles, and we took on the oppressor's value system and rites of passage to fight a war. And we're still
Oh,
fighting
we've
with those.
adopted their hatred in so many ways. I think
Absolutely,
Black
and
people's
we're still
hatred,
fighting with their
unequivocal, is that
with
example.
those we're still fighting with those, and those outdated strategies. And what we
Mhm.
need to go back to is denying them access and invitation and spaces in our safe and sacred spaces, so we can
Baby,
fix.
I'm way
So
ahead of you. I tell them all the time, honey.
yeah,
This is not a place for white trans people. I don't have any white trans friends on my friends list.
yeah,
I don't welcome them into my spaces because for one, I don't trust them. For two, I've encountered at least three white trans women who were Trump supporters.
yeah,
I'm
it
like, I
happens.
this is not something to me that in any way is like funny or like, it feels like a fox in the hen house. It feels
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
call is coming from inside the house. And
yeah.
so this whole, oh, well, we can't all be, what they like to say is we can't all be a monolith. But I don't believe that, because when white people want to affect change, the motherfuckers become a monolith real quick. They get on that monolith ship
Yeah,
and real
it's
fast.
way it's not yeah, it's not as binary as white people try to make it seem. See, that's one thing that we have adopted from Europeans and the oppressor, is making our lives so concrete and being binary and dichotomous, logic, when life is way more nuanced than that.
Mhm.
And what we need to do is, and let me clarify my statement when I say we need to be left alone, or we need to not invite them into our sacred safe places. What I mean by that is, let me clarify, because what I'm saying, I'm out here trying to educate, and I don't want people just getting sound bites and conflating things like, oh,
I hear you. I hear you.
logic's a separatist. What I'm saying is, if you put things in perspective, we give a lot of time and effort on the
Energy.
ordinary, on the average, giving and supporting their institutions. We don't make enough time to support our own institution, which first starts with ourselves and our body of land, which is our bodies. We need to reclaim our bodies and our homes, and then our communities. We don't have very many institutions that we support and uphold when it comes to dismantling internalized racism, healing from our historical trauma, and learning how to love each other in all our diversity. We spend so much time learning how to love white people in all their diversity,
Hmm.
and we need to take the time to do it ourselves without apologizing and without feeling guilty. That's what I want to say on
I fully agree. I have no I've even told myself, like, I refuse to be in a situation where I have a white educator. Like, I don't
that.
I'm beyond the need of their approval. I'm beyond the need of trying to make them comfortable in their with their gaze. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I've gotten to the point where I don't need their help and telling my experience of them. And
Mhm.
a lot of times when any person of color is telling their experience of a white person to a white person, the white person will try to tell them how you're just looking at it the wrong way. You just gotta, have a strong upper, whatever. They always have some kind of weird little colloquialism that they throw out there and try to make you think like they gaslight you, make you think it's you. And it's like, no, no, it's you. I see you for who you are. Um, but when it comes to like a Flame Monroe or
Okay, we can go ahead. Let's do that transition right now. Let's just talk about the Flame Monroe, how humor impacts the trans experience. Let's talk about Dave, because you didn't say some funny stuff tonight that has been very lighthearted. I won't use the word made fun of, but it's been very lighthearted about the trans experience. And you're pretty funny, Divinity.
oh,
Your joke math is on point. You had me cracking up a couple times, and
good.
and at no time, me being a comedian, was I going to or will I apologize for laughing because I thought the stuff was funny.
I am funny. So, uh,
But anyways, what were you going to say
don't
about
apologize. Like,
Flame Monroe?
so Flame. Okay, I'm I've watched Flame since prior to my own transition.
Gotcha.
She's one of the girls who has been in the game a lot longer than me. Um, and so I, give that respect.
Hmm.
However,
She's a older
she's a much
trans
older
person.
trans
Yeah.
woman. She comes from again the generation of trans women that kind of inducted me into womanhood. Well, I had other people, but the trans women that laid down the rules for me. She's part of that
Hmm.
generation.
Gotcha.
Um, and Flame is a very interesting character because Flame, I am not certain that Flame is, and I don't know how people will take this, and I really hope people don't take it wrong, especially after what I've said about Caitlyn tonight.
Well, it's on you if they do.
It's on me if they do. But anyway, I'm not for sure that Flame's transition is not performative, that it's not a part of her shtick, um,
It might be.
because of the life that Flame lives off stage and how comfortable Flame is with masculine pronouns off stage. And when you see Flame's attire, it's not very womanly or flashy like when Flame is on stage. And so the body work is there, but I've seen trans women who've gotten body work just to do performances. Just that's my job. I am a female impersonator, and
Yeah, but
so
Flame's pretty transparent about everything you just now said.
okay.
Because
I don't follow.
I've seen her stand up at the end where the resolution is a picture, masculine presenting with, saying their children,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they do that as kind of like a twist at the end. So
Again, it's the
I'm
punchline
not the
of the
one
joke.
to say that someone's gonna do all that body work and it's just for performance. I think
No, no. But what
that's
I'm
coming
saying
from the
is, I've
heart.
seen that. I've seen
Got you.
people
Got
who
you.
do
Got you.
that, and so
Got you.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that that is what Flame
Right.
is because I don't know for certain. But that is the vibe that I get
Hmm.
from Flame, and
Okay.
so when I see that, I don't immediately register Flame to be a trans woman because of
Whoa.
that. Um,
Hmm.
I can't say that she's not because she's got the body work done and like she meets all of the
That's deep.
criteria. But at the same time, you're also living a very different experience. This is a performance
Hmm.
for you. This is a job for you, a gig for you. You're a
Hmm.
father with children and I think a wife living life in
I've never
suburbia.
heard that part. I've never heard that part of the story. But Flame says that she goes by whatever. She don't play the
Right.
pronoun
So yeah,
game. She
and
said that.
that is again
Yeah.
not part of the standard of womanhood that I am aware
Okay.
of, that I was taught as
Got you.
a
Got you.
young trans woman. Like, that's a no. You don't do that. But again, that's in line with a lot more performers like RuPaul. RuPaul is very famous for saying, I don't care what you call me as long as you call me.
I
Um,
never thought that RuPaul was considered a a trans person though.
no,
I
he's not.
always thought
He's not at
that's
all.
what I thought. I thought
No.
RuPaul was a cross dresser
Yeah,
or
he's a
is.
drag queen. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
So, but
difference.
what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that is along the lines of what I associate with Flame, because
Oh, okay. Okay.
Flame and Rue have that same uh,
Got you.
uh,
Okay.
philosophy. I don't care what you call me, as long as you call me, as long as you're paying me. Call me whatever you want to call me. And I think there is some way to respect. There's some respect to be had about that, but I don't associate her with trans
Okay.
immediately when I hear the name Flame Monroe. I think of a female impersonator performer. That
Hmm.
said, when she is out here speaking for trans women, that is a problem because you don't live the life that these women are living. And
Hmm.
so when you are not living this experience, you don't get to give people permission to disrespect the experience. You don't get to give people permission to use words like tranny and this and that when you're not suffering the blows while hearing those
You've
words.
heard Flame give like cisgender like people
Yeah,
permission to do that? Oh, I've never heard
yeah.
that.
It was
Okay.
on the Young Turks. She did it, and I think she did it on the Breakfast Club.
Oh wait, okay. So real quick. Let's rewind real quick. We need to do another word in the lexicon. Explain turf.
Turf.
Dave Chapelle gave a definition in his stand up, but I know not everyone's going to watch that. So I want you to break it down.
I don't
I want us
actually
to
know
be
the
educated on
acronym.
your definition. What?
I don't know the acronym, like the word for
Okay,
word
yeah.
acronym, but I do know what it means, and it means it's
Yeah.
like a woman who is like uh what is the word? Not bookkeeping, gatekeeping
Hmm.
womanhood from
Gotcha.
somebody who wants to, or trans enthusiasts, as I call them. um, yeah. So when the trans enthusiast gets their feelings hurt and gets told that they are not meeting the standards of somebody's definition of womanhood, then that person gets labeled turf. Um,
Right.
and here's the thing, though, because back in my early transition, I met a few girls who told me for a few reasons I wasn't meeting their definitions of womanhood.
Hmm.
And I took it in, I heard them, and I said, okay. And I went home and I made those adjustments. I fixed, like, and I remember one of them, she's an older girl. She was like, I came to her home, we were spending the weekend together. And she was like looking me up and down. She's like, girl, you take constructive criticism very well. Like, I thought you was gonna be offended when I told you A, B, C, and D, but girl, you got yourself together. Me and her are not friends anymore. But, you know, that's not something that I see with a lot of white trans women, with a lot of
Hmm.
white trans women who throw out words like turf and blah, 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 blah without consideration for what other people tell them. Because not everything is an insult. Not everything is meant to be,
Hmm.
a jab. Sometimes somebody's telling you something because, girl, you need to know.
Right.
Because
So
it, yeah.
so turf is an acronym. Is an acronym for trans exclusionary radical feminists. First recorded in 2008, the term originally applied to the minority of feminists espousing sentiments that other feminists considered transphobic, such as the rejection of the assertion that trans women are women, the exclusion of trans women from women's spaces, and the opposition to transgender rights legislation. So that's turf.
That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got a question for you, real quick.
it.
What about the commentary that comes out if we have trans women who transition later on their life. So, like you said, you transitioned when you were 18,
Mm-hmm.
began the transition. That was 18 years of male privilege, you know, because you aligned yourself and that you know, what's the term I want to use? We just say that um, you identified yourself with the sexual organ that, saying that you were assigned to at birth. So there were 18 years of that privilege of
Mm-hmm.
identifying with that sexual organ that you were assigned to at birth.
Okay.
So what do you think about that commentary? It's like that's 18 years of that privilege prior to you transitioning, because there's male privilege
Yeah.
that we all get from sexual, I mean, not from social conditioning. What will be
Yeah.
your response to that commentary?
So for me, I would say I was never conscious of that privilege while I was in it. And I was never conscious of it until I stepped out of it. And when
Mhm,
I walked into womanhood, all of a sudden, the way the world interacted with me changed, but not necessarily the way that I interacted with the world. So
mhm.
I would tell people no. And
Know what?
before no, just no. It's a sentence. It's no, period. No.
No to
Doesn't matter.
what though? You're saying no to
Doesn't matter. No.
Oh,
I would just say
oh,
no.
okay, I get you. It's like you're terrible twos. No, no,
No.
no.
Right. And prior to my transition, no was it. Like if somebody said no, people say, oh, okay, no problem. Backed off, went about their business. Now
Gotcha.
it's a conversation. It begins a debate. And I find myself getting
Mm,
irritated after I've said no, because now we're debating and negotiating the no.
gotcha.
And it's
Mhm,
like, that was never a part of my experience prior to that. So in my womanhood, I've had to learn how to deal with that with grace. I've had to learn how to be graceful and letting people know that they're stepping on my boundaries, that
mhm,
you're getting, I said no, I said what I said.
mhm,
And a lot of people think that the way that I speak tends to have like an authoritative tone to it. But
mhm,
it's just the way that I talk. It's I think part of my personality. I'm a Capricorn.
mhm.
I'm
Yeah, I'm a
very direct
Pisces.
and in
Mhm,
charge.
mhm.
My Venus is Pisces. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, because I nerd out on this stuff, and it's
mhm,
like a lot of my cisgender, brothers, they kind of get frustrated with me because me being an educator, me being a scholar, I'm always trying to learn things, especially when it's comes to black people.
mhm,
And I nerd out on the fact that you and I share some intersection
a
because
lot.
we had,
After reading your
yeah,
book, we share a lot.
yeah, because at all the way up until 18 years old and when you transition, we grew up with that male privilege.
Mhm.
And whether we identify with it or not, we had similar experiences.
Oh
And
yeah.
as I've gotten older, I'm more aware of my privileges as, a man, who is
Hmm.
straight, who is physically fit. Just a whole bunch of stuff that goes into my privilege, which is aesthetic, which is physical. Like I can just, get up right now and say, oh, it's 10:55. I think I want to go for a run at night. You know what I'm saying? A lot of women, black women specifically, can't say they can do that. A lot of black trans women can't say they do that.
Okay.
I can say I want to go get a plane ticket, and I think I want to go to Africa or Europe or wherever by myself. Ugh, sex trafficking. A lot of trans women can't say they do that, can do that. A lot of black women can't say they do that. And at some point, we shared that privilege
Hmm.
together of not having a menstrual cycle. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And the medical apartheid that comes with a lot of procedures and policies that seem, that target, what I'm saying, cisgender women born, you know, um, with the vagina and who identify with it. And so um that's all I wanted to say. It's just like,
So
those
that
conversations like need to be had.
so the intersections of our commonalities of living under the male privilege, how does that impact what you think of me today?
Um, I just wanted to learn how you process it. I don't know how to think about it yet because I'm not educated
Because
on
that's where
how
my
you
mind goes.
process it.
My
You said,
mind goes to, I said, that's where my mind goes. My mind goes to like the most interesting and juicy parts of my life happened after I stepped into who I was, into my truth,
mhm.
into
Right,
myself.
right.
When I was living in my previous life, I the world was like in black and white. It was
Mhm.
there, and then once I transitioned, I stepped into Technicolor. It's like Dorothy walking into Oz. And so the
Because so much
things
of that
that
was hidden, though. You had to keep it hidden. That's how I see it.
it wasn't that I never
Oh, it
hid.
wasn't that?
I never hid being trans.
Oh,
I
okay.
never hid. Not as soon as I knew who I was, I stepped into my
Got you,
truth.
got you. So
I
the
said, "This is
process
it."
between, birth and 18 was like you
I was just fumbling through life.
got you, got you.
I just
I'll
was
let you say it.
here. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't like miserable or
Got
like,
you.
oh, I don't feel. No, I
Is
just
that
was
some of the
always.
privilege that you're saying that you had that in comparison
I think
to
my
other?
freedom to be that was a privilege. I think
Got
my
you.
freedom to be this free
That makes sense.
spirited young man who was drifting through life, that was a
That's
privilege.
dope.
I don't, now there are expectations now.
Yeah.
But then, yeah. And so for me, once I really stepped into me, once I really recognized, oh, this is where I should be. Because while I didn't have this whole like fight within my mind about, oh, well, I feel like I'm this trapped in that. I never felt like that. But what I did was I associated myself always to feminine energy, to feminine characters. So,
Mhm.
like all of my favorite Disney movies. And it wasn't like I want to be the princess, it was more along the lines of her story is interesting. If I was stuck in a palace with a beast, what would I do? How would I get out of that? More importantly, if he gave me a library, would I give him some? I don't know. I don't know. These are the things that I would think about.
Mhm.
I associated myself with Ariel. I got her. She made sense to me. These are the
And I think that's the most healthy way to raise children is that they identify with both divine masculine, and the not divine feminine energies. Like we
right.
should be able to identify with the black woman characters in movies just as much as we do the males and stop like rejecting, what I'm saying, that association
Because
or
there
that
were men that I
alignment that we
identified
make.
with
That's the most
too.
healthy way to
Right.
raise our children. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what Yoruba teaches us. That's what a lot of African spiritual systems teach us.
Oh,
Kemet, like we
my
learn the
favorite
story of
Orisha.
Isis just as much as we learn the story of Osiris.
Do you know who Oshumare
Oshun,
is?
who?
No, not Oshun. Oshumare.
No. Oshu, you said,
Oshumare is my favorite Orisha.
oh yeah,
They
Oshun. I know who
No,
Oshun is.
not
Yeah, of course.
Oshun.
Oh,
Oshun.
there's a
I
different one.
love Oshun. Don't get me wrong. That's my
Oh,
girl.
there's a different one, the Oshun Mare.
Oshumare.
Oh, okay.
Oshumare is a half snake, half woman, who sometimes appears as a man or will appear as a woman. Either way, whichever she feels
Right.
suits her purpose. Um, and she's the patron saint of like the LGBT. She's all about transitioning and turning one thing into another thing. I freaking stand Oshumare. That's That's research for you. But
Yeah.
um, I say all that to say I like Oshumore because Oshumore matches what I feel is true divinity, which is the transcendence of gender, which is I'm above it all. I
It's kind of
utilize
like
gender
androgyny.
as it's more intense. It's
Hmm.
utilizing gender to manifest your goals, to manifest your destiny, to manifest whatever it is you want to manifest. The law of gender is actually one of the 7 universal laws of the world. And it refers to the mental gender of a person and how everything in life, our actions, our energy, what we do, all of it has either a masculine or a feminine energy.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
some thoughts that you have are very feminine, but the actions that you do to make those thoughts manifest into reality are the manifest are the masculine. I can talk. Are the masculine aspects of that thought. And so, for instance, I want a cup of water. It's a feminine thought. It is a want, a
Well,
receptive
water.
desire, a
Water in
receptive
itself.
desire. Right. But me getting up physically and going into the kitchen and doing all of the steps that it takes to make myself a cup of water is the physical match to that energy.
Masculine.
So, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
See,
Um,
this is very good. This is what I'll be trying to teach brothers and sisters is that feminine and masculine energy does not always equate to male and female or man and woman. They're energies.
mhm.
You know what I'm saying? That's why we need to go back and study it from where it came instead of studying where Europeans freaking stumbled on it and corrupted it. We need to go back to
Well,
phallus
you
and
know, that's why
yoni.
indigenous cultures had trans people as their spiritual leaders in their
Absolutely.
communities. Trans
And
people
some
were
of them, yeah,
always
they did. Hmm.
the spiritual leaders, the hoodoo woman,
What they
the
call them?
Edgewood
Didn't they
in
call them third
town,
spirits? And some of them,
third
didn't they call them
spirits.
third?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I think it was the Native Americans called them two spirit, and
Okay,
Zulu people called them
two spirits. Okay,
something I can't think of it.
okay.
But we've always existed.
Breadcrumbs, breadcrumbs, seeds. We're planting seeds.
Right. We've always existed in every indigenous culture. There's always been gender variant people. And where we are now in society, there are all these surgeries and potions you can take for all of these, well, not potions, but hormones and all that stuff that you can take to affect your transition. But, in the past, it was really about the spiritual ascension through
Yeah.
gender, getting to that divine state.
Mhm.
When
I'm
I
glad you
first,
said that part right there. Yeah. There's a
yeah,
difference.
when I first transitioned, I was really hypersensitive about anything masculine, and I would try very hard to never allow any kind of masculine thing to creep out about me, and it just was a really toxic existence.
Mhm.
And I was talking to my spiritual consultant that I go to, and I was telling her about this guy that I was seeing, and he had wanted me to like top him in the bed, and I felt really off. I hope we can talk about this. I hope we're not. I'm not. Like, anyway, he wanted me to perform, a more active role in the bedroom that
Gotcha.
I was willing or even conscious that I could do. Like, me? Do that? To you? What? Get out. And I was talking to this woman, she's a white woman. I was talking to her about it. And I remember I was like, I don't understand. Like, why would he want that from me? Like, I I thought he was straight. I thought he was this. I thought, and so her question to me became, or her question to me was, uh, is there, or why do I associate the act of giving sexually automatically with masculinity. She was like,
Mm-hmm.
when you can give in very many ways, you can femininely give, just like you can
Mm-hmm.
femininely receive. And that was one of the biggest aha light bulb moments I've ever had in my entire life, where she just like flipped a switch, where I had never contemplated the way that I do something is either masculine or feminine, not the act
Yeah.
itself.
But
Um,
in your defense, you were probably looking at it that way is because you've been taught according to a European value system that that's what masculinity is. And
yeah.
so that's not even like the purest form of it.
And when you
You
know
know what I'm
better, you
saying?
do better. When you
You
know
said
better, you
what?
do better. I said, when you know
Oh
better,
yeah,
you
yeah,
do better.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
like,
that's why I'm saying that's what I'm saying is like we got to remember in all different seasons and phases that we're all in our lives how we were socially conditioned.
mm-hmm,
And no matter if you're what your sexuality is, if you're trans or you're cisgender, feel me, it's never going to be able to um like deny the sexist, homophobic, anti-gay, you know what I'm saying, misogynistic, misogynoir, you know what I'm saying, conditioning that you were taught since birth.
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? I can't tell you how many times that I've had uh trans women or masculine presenting, you know what I'm saying, non-binary, you know what I'm saying, people who just like have internalized so much anti-woman sentiment and they just beat up women. Like they'll be in relationships and they'll be the masculine presenting woman who will beat up on the quote unquote, you know, feminine, you know,
mm-hmm.
presenting woman because that's what the provider does in the relationship because they're modeling masculine, you know what I'm saying, value systems that were given to us by white men and their
Mm-hmm.
patriarchal, you know, structure.
And you said this is in lesbian relationships?
Yeah, it could be in lesbian relationships. It could be a trans woman who dates, you know what I'm saying, cisgender women. I've
Uh-huh.
or not even dating, just I've had uh trans, you know, women who you can tell it's a pattern of predatory behavior where they are beating up on cisgender women.
Hmm. Wow.
I
Well,
mean, but internalized sexism and misogyny and misogynoir doesn't stop. You know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? Because you transition, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop
No, it
what's been
doesn't.
planted inside of you. You know what I mean?
Not at all. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I
And I have to tell people that all the time about gay men. It's like just because you're gay, brother, you know what I'm saying, don't mean, you know what I'm saying, you get a pass to call black women all out their names and think that nah, and
it
I had a bi
women
sister
become a
tell me that.
punching bag for like the world, and I don't really understand where
You said what
that
now?
I said black women have become like the punching bag for the world, and I don't really
Oh.
understand why. And there are times where I see it, and it's like so startling that it's startling because it's coming from black men. It's startling
Mhm.
because it's like the black women that you're insulting are the same black women who are marching for you, are the same black women who are outraged to see men who look like you dead on the street. And they're the only ones outraged about it, but they are also the butt of your joke. They're the punchline.
Mhm.
And I don't get that. I don't understand what's funny about it. I don't understand. I just don't. And it's like I often tell black men in these areas when I do engage with them, I tell them, or I'll start asking them how they measure up to white masculinity standards, since they hold black
Mhm.
women to white femininity standards. How do you measure up against a white man? Do you own
And that's the
anything?
thing. We measure up pretty good. And a
Not
lot of white men,
always,
but what I'm telling you,
and
enough
not the
white men have,
loudest ones.
but listen, what I'm saying is, to answer your question, is that enough white men have told black men in oh so many ways through their fascination and even through their targeting that
Mhm.
you are the epitome of what I want to be. And
Right.
it goes to our head and we like, yeah, and that constantly is in the
But it's
head of
always
white
been
men
that
too.
way. The
Yeah.
Roman
But see, but what you're
used
explaining is the thesis of colonialism is to have an adverse antagonistic relationship with Mother Earth, which when it manifests in human beings is the black woman.
Mhm.
Period. So our
You lost
whole,
me with that one. Say that again.
okay, the whole thesis of colonialism
Hmm.
is to have an adverse antagonistic relationship with Mother Earth.
Right.
Is to go around the world, the global community, and extract resources from indigenous original people
Hmm.
and have this adverse relationship with Mother Earth because in our native land of Europe, Mother Earth was never ever nice to us. That's their story.
Hmm.
When we're in the cold and the tundra, and that's why they call it deadline. You know what I'm saying? Because we had to wait, you know what I'm saying, to harvest. And if we didn't meet that deadline, white men and women would be dead. So they went
Right.
all over the earth, mad at earth, and they took it out on people that look like earth, that look like the dirt, that came from it,
Mm-hmm.
and who have a relationship with the earth that is beyond their comprehension. They
Well,
marvel.
see, and that's where my issue with white trans people comes from, because in white European cultures, you don't
Mhm.
see a lot of gender variant people. And when you do, it's usually regarding something sexual. So like in Rome, there were like emperors who would like take little boys and castrate them and turn them into their wives, and
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
um
there's bigger history of that. That's why they still, they were powdering their faces and wearing wigs. You still see there in that
right.
in their judicial systems and
But
their court systems. Mhm.
it wasn't a spiritual thing.
It
It,
wasn't.
it
They were
was just
playing
a
women in
physical
plays and all that stuff too, just
that
to take the
that
opportunity away
exactly.
from women.
Exactly. And so where you have it in indigenous cultures, it's a spiritual movement toward divinity, trying to ascend and understand better,
I see that. I've read
versus
that. I've researched
this
that and read that in so many places. Yes.
this European force. So this European force comes in and sees these
Hmm.
people have a spiritual, system of their own that they go through, and they just start killing um, uh, gender variant people like everywhere they went, they touched down, and those were the first people that they went after, were the gender variants. And it's like now they want to center themselves in the trans movement, and it's like it's the most disrespectful thing that I've encountered, I think, since I've transitioned, is the notion that they can just come in and that, oh, I'm making this rule today, and tomorrow I feel like this, and I don't feel like you should say this anymore. Things that I say very comfortably, that they tell me now I'm wrong for saying. But it's like Rachel Dolezal telling a black woman that she's out of line for saying some black shit. I don't know. Like,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did you just now compare transracial with transgender?
I did. I did in fact.
Uh-oh. I was told you're not supposed to do that, Divinity.
I don't think that they are comparable to one
Got
another.
you.
I do think that the situation is very similar, though. If Rachel
Yeah.
Dolezal
They
told a
they
black
share some
woman,
intersection.
"You're out of line for doing
Yeah.
ABC, for doing something that black women culturally do,"
Yeah.
and like that is a similar scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, they share some intersection. I will say that. Look, we're at an hour and 44 minutes. We going no, seriously. We got to part two this because I gotta you got to teach me some more. You know what I'm saying? We got to educate. We got to nerd out. We got to blurt out black nerds.
For
Um,
sure.
But
Marvel all the way.
let's do a part two of this very soon. I appreciate you. Let's stay in contact. Every Sea Talk, this is what we do though. We have what we call a plan of action. So based on what we talked today, and the subjects we were talking about, what is the plan of action as we move forward with, understanding, what I'm saying, the trans experience, black people, um, removing, what I'm saying, white people from our safe spaces so we can learn to love the diversity of our community. What's the plan of action as we move forward?
My plan of action is to continue not including them in my spaces. But um, uh, I think for me, I'm trying to find healthy and constructive ways to redirect conversations and to show the hypocritical nature of a lot of the prejudice that Black people hold for queer people, particularly trans people. And one way that I've done this, but I don't feel it's healthy, so I would like to change it, is I've been saying, well, Blue Lives Matter. And then they
Okay.
look at me like, well, you're Black too. Yeah, I am. But I feel safer with them at this moment than I do with you. And that's a
Damn.
problem.
You do?
That's
Oh,
a
damn.
problem.
Okay.
It's very.
That's a theory that I've had for a while, but I'm glad that you confirmed it. Well, that's how
No,
we lose a lot of Black LGBTQIA brothers and sisters, is because we treat them like crap, and then we wonder why they're all, quote unquote, up underneath white people. Well,
Black men are the number one pillars of Black trans women. And I say that, and
mm,
people think like I'm being hyperbolic. I'm not. And
I
when they
think I saw
do,
that in the CDC report.
every time they do, it's always the same. So I don't know. She was trying to trick me. And then you have a chorus of little people behind them. Oh yeah, you got it. This is why. This is da da da. And it's like the cycle starts all over again. And it's hurtful. It's saddening. It's because it's like I will go word for word with the races online and dismantle all of their lies. That's all I do with them. And I don't really argue with them. I really just dismantle their lies and like walk them into the inevitable truth that I tell. And but it's like when I'm dealing with a transphobic Black person, they're using the literal same logic, the literal same excuses that white people use to dismiss the murders of Black men and children. It's like, I just had this conversation with Karen. Like, I just had this conversation. And now you, a Black person, are giving me Karen's line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. And it's like, how do you fix your mouth to say Black Lives Matter, but have like a parentheses about except for these lives, not these
Right.
ones. Those other ones, they matter, but not these ones. We don't.
So your plan of action will be to exclude white people from our safe and sacred places so we can figure it out. But also, when we say Black Lives Matter, that means all lives matter.
All Black lives,
Yeah.
not just the
And
Black lives
yeah,
that you
I
fancy.
adhere
All
to
Black.
Black Lives Matter, and all Black lives matter as more of a sentiment, more than assigning it to a specific movement.
Mm-hmm.
But because I always thought that movement was just for, what I'm saying, political reasons for white folks. Because
No, and I'm not saying all lives matter.
no, no,
That's
I
not
hear
what
you.
I'm saying
No, I'm
at all.
talking about Black Lives Matter. I was
Yeah.
always like, Black lives has always mattered to me, but I
Right.
get it.
Right.
Like maybe some white folks needed to know that, but I always knew it.
Well,
Um,
some needed it
my
explained.
my plan of action would be similar to yours. To add on to what you're saying, it's just create safe places for us to, talk about this like we did today. I think we
Right.
modeled, and I came into this conversation with a lot of fears and a lot of, I mean, a little scared, because hey,
You feel
learning
better
something.
now?
No, I've always been. I'm above average. Straight dude. I will admit that. I was. You know what I'm saying? I
Why
was.
do you feel better now about the conversation? Like, because you said you were nervous
Um.
before. That was my question. I don't know what else.
I was a little bit nervous, more, yeah, fearful that, I would be misunderstood. But that's a Pisces thing in general. If you follow the zodiac or whatever, if you bear witness to that, we
Oh
we
yeah.
we have a tendency to be concerned and quote unquote worry about being understood. But it was our first conversation, and we live and everything. But I just want to make sure that as we move forward, the plan of action is to create safe places where people can be like you and just be real patient, flexible, and tolerant, what people who are trying to learn,
Yeah.
you know, because that's used as an excuse too.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of petty, and it's super clumsy and irresponsible. Like, well, you try to talk to trans people and they're so defensive, this, that, and yeah, you would be too if you feel like your life is always in danger and you're always being ridiculed, you'd be defensive too. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I want to say, like, I appreciate you being patient,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and teaching. And, because that's not necessarily your responsibility to teach a person who's a stranger and a whole
Huh?
bunch of strangers. That's not your responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if my mom or, dad or someone was trans, that would be their responsibility because we're more connected. But it's my responsibility to pick up a breadcrumb or plant the seed and nurture the seed and go do the research myself.
Right. You're very true.
So,
Very factual.
so, anyways, love you, Divinity. We'll talk soon. I'll see you backstage. I'm gonna end the broadcast.